something, of this nature. I remain skeptical on the documents, merely for some of their content and format. But do I deny that there indeed was such an oversight committee and to this day continues to oversee, the cover-up itself? No. We know that there are puppet masters still pulling the strings.
They're still out there. Don, thank you so much. Stanton Friedman and Bryce Abel continue, and we'll bring in the producer of Magic Men, Don Most, in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Now, our next guest is an actor, a producer, a director, well known for his co-starring role as Ralph in the long-running television series Happy Days. He continues to act, having appeared in numerous television series and features, including his portrayal of Timothy Leary on the UFO series Dark Skies, and recently in The Great Buck Howard. He is a long-standing advocate, by the way, of research into UFO reality and currently developing First on Scene, which is a documentary special about firefighters in UFOs. Now, as the producer, Don will work with Bryce Abel on developing the story and screenplay of Magic Men. Here he is on Coast to Coast, Don Most. Don, welcome. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, George. It's mine to be on with you. It's my first time. I'm very excited.
And by the way, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was actually yesterday, but thank you for that. I'm just getting a little bit younger, actually.
We're all Peter Pan, aren't we, Don?
Yes. Yes.
A lot of people will remember you as Ralph on Happy Days, and they're going to stop and think and go, what, he's producing a movie on Magic Men, UFOs? What's going on here?
Absolutely.
How did this happen for you?
Well, I have, as you mentioned, I've had a long and serious, keen interest in this subject ever since I was a kid, and then especially probably starting sometime in the 80s when I started reading. I think the first real serious book I read was Above Top Secret by Timothy Good, and that really opened my eyes in a big way. And then I continued to read extensively on the subject. And then Bryce and I met in the early 90s. We became friends, and then we discovered that, we shared a passion for that subject in a big way. And since we were both, filmmakers and in that business, we kept thinking maybe there's something we could do together in that arena. And it was right around the time when he was getting ready to do Dark Skies, and we used to go running, and I would hear all of the ideas flowing out of him when he was, getting ready to sell that series, and it was just engrossing to me and so creative, and so I was very excited for him during that stage. And then we kept coming back to it. What can we do? And then around sometime after Stan's Top Secret Magic book came out and Bryce optioned that, but as he mentioned, nothing really happened at that time period, but he and I started talking about that, and we were thinking, should we try to do something with that book? And then when Don Schmidt's book, Witness to Roswell, came out, Bryce sort of had this brainstorm, and he said, I have this idea. Why don't we combine these two books, get their life rights, and see if we could put these two together and make this sort of unification field theory of, if you will, for the subject. And I kept, coming back to something that Stanton would say in his book, that this was the cosmic Watergate, and so that's where I sort of started thinking about, well, this is a Watergate, and then All the President's Men was examining, an incident and trying to uncover the truth and the cover-up, and so the more that Bryce and I talked about it, we really started to feel that this is the way to go, and so here we are.
That's super, and what I really like too, Don, is the resiliency of folks like you and people who have developed from being tremendous actors, also evolving as producers and directors, like Ron Howard has too.
Oh my God, yeah. Ron's done it, has not too bad of a career. I mean,
no, not bad at all. Bryce, tell me a little bit about the relationship here with Don then, and you're going to work 2 to 2 on this Magic Men show.
Oh, is Bryce there?
Don said we've spent so much time talking about this topic. I just wanted to throw one thing out there because it seems like it's an important point. When you asked Don Schmidt earlier whether he agreed with the Majestic 12 documents, and he said, well, sort of, but he had a different interpretation. Don Most and I, as we've talked about it, have said that's what really makes the movie work. It's the competition. It's the fact that these two don't have to agree. They're not marching in lockstep. And so Don and I, Don Most, have had such a wonderful time trying to understand not only the story and the truth, but also the characters and how we can intertwine them all together. And you kind of need a partner in something like this to so that you stay grounded and you do the right thing. So it's been a really good relationship for us. It's good for our friendship.
Yeah, if I may interject, sure. I mean, even on that note, Bryce and I even have a similar, I don't want to say differing opinion, but slightly. I mean, I happened to fall in step with Stanton on the MJ-12 documents. I mean, after reading his book, I mean, to me, the preponderance of the evidence that he lays out in terms of the incredible details and specificity just was overwhelming to me. And I look, like he said, at the data and the facts. So, I really do believe in the authenticity of those documents, where Bryce, has some reservations, just like, so it's a similar thing between Don Schmidt and Dan Freeman that we have. But I don't think that's an impediment in I don't think we necessarily have to agree at this point, because as we lay out the investigations of these two men and these differences arise, that's part of the conflict.
In fact, Don, one of the interesting things as you were saying that I was thinking about is, if you think about it, the Majestic 12 documents are either authentic documents about a briefing that was written by Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter for President-elect Dwight Eisenhower in 1952, or they are something that was created by an Air Force intelligence operative, probably a guy named Richard Doty, to try to release him into the UFO community. And either one, I mean, the first one is mind-blowing, but the second one is, why would you do that? Both raise a lot of questions for any movie and for any story and for any set of reporters, as our two men here, Friedman and Schmidt, are. They're looking into the whole big picture, which George, as you know, is full of disinformation and people trying to peddle theories that throw the good researchers off track.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the weeding through on some of this is absolutely incredible. And Stan, in your career, did you ever come? What has been the most frustrating aspect for you?
Well, I suppose it's the attitude of some of the people who are pro-UFO who keep saying, and I just read something yesterday about this, that basically everybody knows, except Stan Friedman, that these MJ-12 documents are fraudulent. And I keep trying to challenge these people. Okay, I've written a big fat book, Top Secret Magic, in which I raise the objections of the debunkers of the MJ-12 documents, and I think effectively handle those objections. So what is the problem, guys? And I would expect better from people. I expect more gray baskets out there. So that's been the big frustration. Let's dismiss it by everybody knows they're fraudulent. And let's face it, I've done more than anybody to show that a whole bunch of phony MJ-12 documents are out there. But I do it not by proclaiming, well, this one doesn't strike me as right, but by showing, for example, the documents that were emulated to produce the phony documents. I dug out the books, dug out the original documents. Anybody who's putting them side by side can see, oh, the guy just changed a few words and put out a new document, but it's obviously false. And so I keep waiting, very impatiently, I might add, for the attackers. Put some facts out on the table, guy. Put the bet down there on the table. Don't just say, well, everybody knows they're phony. So that's been the most frustrating thing. I don't expect people to jump in and say, oh, I'm sure you're right, Sam. Let's let it go at that. That isn't the point. But there is data. There are details. And I'm also surprised, frankly, at the failure of some people, just about everybody in this field, to go after the inside story. I found somebody, for example, who worked for President Truman the entire time he was in the White House. And I sent him copies of the documents with his permission and said, can I check back with you in a few weeks? And I did. And before I called him, I realized that if he knows something, he can't tell me. So I've